So now I'm going to show a few of these principles and techniques in action, and they can definitely help us reach our outcomes if we understand how they work. And in fact, a lot of the misunderstanding of these principles in life are what mess us up. And astrologically speaking, this is totally true. And not just to help you make predictions or whatever, but you need to understand that the planets themselves are principles, are astrological principles, which means they're like the seven lights of consciousness. The sun is the principle of illumination, and it's the Paramatman, the Supreme Self. It's a principle in itself. Every planet is a deep principle. It brings together all of the other structures, the scientific and the metaphysical. Astrologically, those principles are folded into the planets, especially because they are the lords. Lord Vishnu has assumed the form of the grahas. So the laws of the universe are folded into each of the planets as a metaphysical force, a scientific force, and a spiritual astrological force. So the sun is that principle, the moon is the principle of reflection and consciousness. Mars is the principle of courage. Venus is the principle of yielding and accommodating. Mercury is the principle of variety and flexibility, curiosity. Jupiter is the principle of hope, meaning, purpose. Saturn is the principle of facing the truth in solitude. These are principles of life that we need to understand, and the other important framework that I'm talking about here are the gunas, because they're very important. We have tamas, rajas, and sattva. If you don't know these words so well, they're really related to body, mind, and spirit, like I said before. And they refer also to the evolution. Things evolve from body, mind to spirit. It should be going up and down. But we evolve, these concepts evolve through body, mind, and spirit. And the planets themselves rule the different gunas. And in integrity, we can learn a lot about how to approach these, what are often called, malefic energies. They're not malefic. What happened, that's just how they feel. But this is to indicate how we're meant to use their energies and what they awaken in us. So for instance, as I said, the tamasic guna has to do with the self. Self-preservation, our individual self-identity as an individual. It's where we feel separate. The Rajasic guna has to do with connecting that separateness with others. Rajasic, me and you, is very much related to the Rajasic guna, which is emotional in nature. It's related to the mind. The tamas is related to the body, me. Rajas is me and you. Sattva is all of us. In a simple sense. This is a simple framework that works really well. And not just all of us, but all of us connected to the ultimate. Okay? So, of course, it sounds like this is the good one, but again, we need to be careful with that. Tamasic planets are Mars, Saturn, and the nodes. It's very easy to say, yes, they're the selfish ones because they're tamasic. They're just interested in the self. That's not the way to look at it. Their main interest and motivation is self-preservation. But the way to understand the gunas in this sense is to understand that we're supposed to hold these energies for ourselves. I want you to understand this. We're supposed to keep the Mars and Saturn energy to ourselves. Okay? Which means Mars energy, which is the energy of destruction in order to make things strong, is supposed to be kept to ourselves. The problem happens when we inflict that on others, which is the Rajasic guna. When we think that the thing that's making me weak is you, then Mars comes to strengthen you and to destroy you and to destroy your ideas. And that's the problem with Mars. Not that Mars is bad. Mars is cruel, but we're supposed to keep that cruelty to ourselves and have the courage to face our own shortcomings, face our own weaknesses, rather than inflict it on others. Mercury and Venus are the planets that are meant with others, and I'll talk about that in a second. But Mars and Saturn are tamasic in the sense that we're supposed to keep those energies to ourselves. And when we inflict them on others, that's the problem. When we don't use these gunas appropriately, that's where we have the problem. They're universal principles. Saturn, again, is about protection, fear, isolation. There's nothing wrong with those things. Fear, isolation compel us to go inward and face life's difficulty. Again, we're supposed to keep that to ourselves. And so when we're faced with fear, rather than try to control people because I'm scared that you might do something I don't want, or I need to make a lot of money so I don't die, I need to make a lot of money so I can build up all of this protection so that I'm not going to die, but I'm not going to die, right? Right? Everything will be okay, right? And we bring that stress into everybody else. That's the problem. Not that Saturn is bad and punishing us for our sins and all of the insane language you hear around Vedic astrology, sadly to say. The problem with Saturn is when we inflict it on others. So to understand these gunas, it's a deep principle. We're supposed to keep this to ourselves. And when we keep the cruelty to ourselves, we grow and we become more self-aware. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to have the discipline to do what we know is right and the willingness to be alone and not cling to others. Now, the nodes create confusion. They're a little difficult to talk about, but confusion is also meant to be kept to ourselves. The nodes are where we're in a very accelerated path of karma and we're not sure what to do. But again, we're supposed to keep the confusion to ourselves as much as possible, but the nodes are really wild cards, but they have a tamasic quality of confusion. Now, when we get into the Rajasa Guna, Mercury and Venus are the Rajasic planets, which are meant for interaction with others. This we're supposed to keep to ourselves. This we're supposed to share. Equality. Me and you. Equal. Equal. That whole thing about if I get this, you get that, and we're equals, comes from Mercury and Venus. Mercury gives us the tolerance of other people's ideas. To say, you say this and I say that. I don't necessarily agree with it, but okay. I can live with that. It's okay. You're free to think what you want to think and accommodates all views. It's curious about someone else and what they're doing. It's, flexible and adaptable. It's this interplay of Rajas. This is what Rajas is. It just means action. It means activity. And also passion and stimulation and enjoyment. These are the planets that we're meant to enjoy. But we're meant to share them. Rajasa Guna has to do with this interchange between others. And Venus, of course, is the active principle of two grown-ups interacting with each other in like a romantic relationship or business relationship or any type of relationship where there are two adults. Not a parent and a child, not a teacher and a student. Those are different relationships that have to do with Sun, Moon, and Jupiter. But two grown-ups interacting with each other. Venus is the one that allows us to want to appreciate and have harmony with others. And this evolves through the realm of desire. First there's our desires and what makes me happy, but then as I grow, I realize that I'm not happy if it has to come at your expense. This is the Venus understanding. And, Mercury just gives enjoyment, where we enjoy interacting, we enjoy life. Life makes us, we're very curious about things. That's sort of curiosity of a child. This is very worldly energy. This is very self-interested. This is very worldly. The dynamism of the world is very Rajasic, and Mercury and Venus are the ones that we are supposed to use to navigate the world. And when we interact with others in a Mercury-Venus way, at least our peers and our lovers and our business associates, that's the appropriate use. These are the planets that we're supposed to use in a Rajasic way. For instance, but like I said, what happens is we mix these up. So as an example, we wind up being, with others, we bring Mars into others, which is, you're wrong, I'm right, get out of my way, I'm impatient. Rather than holding onto it for ourselves, which is what we're supposed to do with tamasic planets, we throw them on others. Also, rather than share, this is about sharing with others. Sharing, not sacrificing for others, that's what this guna is about, but sharing with others. We want to share ideas. We want to share what makes us happy, right? It's about sharing. But instead, what do? We hoard it. We keep it to ourselves. This makes me happy. I want it. You don't get any. This is the death of relationships. This is a principle. Like I said, when you go upstream toward principles, it makes sense. When we want to keep all the happiness for ourselves, relationships have a problem. Venus is the principle of relationships, called the Karaka. So the Karaka of relationships come from Venus energy. When we use Venus appropriately in its appropriate guna, which is to share what we have, not just with our partner, not just with our family, but with others. Others is a big category. To share, not to sacrifice, not to be a doormat either. Not this. This is also a problem. When we take Venus energy, which is about sharing and mutual respect, and say, oh, I'll just sacrifice it all and do anything you want anytime. That's delusion. That does not lead to relationship happiness. It might for a while, but it's not a real happiness. Because eventually Venus is going to not feel appreciated, and that's the sort of currency of Venus. So again, we need to use the appropriate guna. It's not appropriate to think that we're going to be a selfless partner in a romantic relationship or any kind of partnership with an adult. It's about mutual respect. That's the guna. So we can't hoard all the pleasure for ourselves. We can't sacrifice it all to another. We need to have it be interchange, Rajasa Guna. So these two planets need to be used in the Rajasic way. When it's used in the Tamasic way, my ideas are right, my desires are all that's important, there's a problem. Or, I'm just going to think whatever you want to think. This is a problem with Mercury. I'll just believe blindly and not be curious about it at all. That's a problem with Mercury. Problem with Venus is I'll just compromise anytime. That's a problem with Venus as well. So this is why you can't judge these gunas either. And this is another problem with people think about the gunas. Oh, these are the bad ones, this is the good one. It's not true. They have an appropriate nature. And any violation, anytime they're not in the right category, there's a problem at some point. Now they intermingle, like you can have righteous and sacrificial courage. This works as long as the principle of Mars is operating. That's a little more subtle, but now we're just going to focus on this. We have the Sattvic Guna. These are the planets, the Sattvic energies. They're meant to be given selflessly. In service, selfless love, selflessness. Again, all the planets have the capacity to be operating with authenticity around these gunas as long as we understand their function. So this is really related. This is why the sun and the moon and the teacher are very sacrificial energies. The sun is the father, the moon is the mother principle, and Jupiter is like the teacher principle. All of them are the parts of you that want to sacrifice and want to do what's right and expect nothing in return. The father feels good when he sacrifices to go out and earn a living for his family. He doesn't want anything from his children. Mother doesn't want anything from the children. She feels good when she can provide for them. Again, what the problem is when it becomes like this, and this is what happens. These are the problems of life. You can understand like every problem of life if you understand this principle. Just this one. This is why I say these principles are the key, not just to understanding astrology, but to understanding life. And of course, when you start to plug them into astrology, everything changes. So when I get questions that just focus, like I said in the first video about, I have an outcome, will this technique help me get it, and it's completely devoid of the principle, I don't even like to give an answer because it's not going to help. The important thing is the principle. When the father starts demanding reciprocity from the child, it doesn't work. Now I'm not saying once they're adults, once they become adults, an adult child and a parent, then they're operating in the Venus role. When the mother starts demanding appreciation from a child who isn't mature enough to understand that, let's say from like a 10-year-old, respect me. Now, again, what happens is a mother, she's always evaluating what's the maturity level of the child to expect a level of respect that the child can understand. And once the children grow up and they're two adults, then they're playing in this role. But the problems and the violations that happen around parentage often happen around these gunas. When you get the son in a Rajasic or Tamasic way, the father is self-interested. You know, all I do for you and what do you do, blah, blah. This is laying something, this is not honoring this quality of life. We don't need to judge the father for it. It will have its own payback. And this is what karma is. It's not like you're being punished for it, but the violation of these principles is its own punishment. Because this is a living divine force. All of these are living divine forces in each of us. And it's a standard of consciousness within us that we are either in harmony with or we're not, and we're suffering because we're not in harmony with it. Astrology doesn't punish us for it. It just awakens that thing in a pure sense. Our suffering is the difference between what it truly is in us and how much of it we're able to actually express and understand. You should never look at astrology as something punishing you. The astrology is not punishing you. It's the forces of intelligence in you. It's a standard of consciousness that you have. A father will eventually suffer if he mistreats his child that way. You know it, because he's still the son. The son is still the son. And the father will remember when he was selfish with the child. He'll remember because the child will not appreciate him and will lose respect for him as a father. And the father will know. He'll remember back when the child was innocent, back when he felt that way about the child, and he'll see how his ego and his desires and his selfishness spoiled the situation. That'll be its own punishment. Now, it comes timed to astrological phenomena, like Saturn going over the sun or whatever, but it's not Saturn punishing us. Saturn just shows us the need to then go inside and face this ourselves, and be honest and real about it. But what would typically happen maybe in that situation, if this is a dark, ignorant energy, is instead of doing that, the person will externalize it, like I just said. Rather than going inward with that Saturn energy, they'll find some way they'll get, worked up in some kind of way to protect themselves from the stress and the fear of and the pain of their mistakes. So again, Sattvic energy is about selfless giving. When we start to demand from others around Sun, Moon, and Jupiter, like a teacher who starts to fool around with a student, as an example. Teachers are in a authority role, and they have power over a student, and they need to use that power for good. And let's say sometime, it's not uncommon to hear of like sex scandals with gurus and teachers. Hello, right? This is very much this. Instead of the selfless giving, it winds up in the Rajasic realm. I want to have some pleasure with that. Or the Tamasic, even dominating them or exploiting them or taking their money. So, sex is Rajasic, and, domination and cruelty and theft and stuff is Tamasic. So you would see this taking advantage of this energy, and again, it will have its own punishment in this lifetime or another. So this is a powerful framework of the gunas. And again, there's also a problem when, for instance, if we take something like Saturn, which is meant to be held onto and brought into our own realm, and meant to concentrate and try to be too selfless with it too. Again, it's very tempting to say that the Sattvic guna is the good one, so we should always try to do that one. Each planet has a Sattvic evolutionary nature. So for instance, when we take an energy like Saturn, which is first meant to give us a feeling of security and safety and inner strength, and if we're not connected to that part of it, because let's say it's in a Sattvic sign, instead what we're going to be doing is looking externally, looking into some utopic idea to give us some kind of solid foundation. And we can get very lost in that. A lot of the problems with Sattvic interference, planets, let's say Tamasic planets in Sattvic signs or Rajasic planets in Sattvic signs, is the illusion and the delusion of some kind of high, universal, utopic vision. And it might seem, actually a lot of spiritual people have this, where they have this kind of what's called like spiritual bypassing or something, where they have they just want to kind of rise above all of the problems, and they don't actually process their pain and their suffering and their grief. They just want to kind of rise above it all. Oh, it's this big thing. These are energies that need to be processed. We need to process our anger and turn it into discipline and have the courage to face our shortcomings. We need to process our fear and turn it into a deep commitment to truth. So again, it's not always what you think. It's why you can't judge these gunas. They have their dignified purpose, and when we violate them, we're violating a sacred law of the universe. It's a principle. So I don't want this to get too much longer, but I hope you've enjoyed this sort of examination of just this principle. This is one principle, actually. And again, once you go into the implications of these principles, this is one part of this principle. It's a deep principle. I could talk for 3 hours about this easily. But every planet, sign, house, these are all astrological principles, are tied to gunas and the evolutionary process and the inner outer. I could have talked about yin yang, about these things. I could have gone many places with these principles. So that's a level to really work with. And in my courses and my classes, this is where we start. We start examining all of this first, because you really can't do astrology with any kind of confidence and precision unless you get these things mastered. So share this with others if you thought it was helpful, and thanks a lot.